A show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on JTV. This show is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Colonial Insurances, DG Cell, Delta Petroleum BVI, Cyril B. Romney Tortola Pier Park, and the Gumptions Experience BVI. This is The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this edition. And my guest today is the leader of the opposition, Honorable MARLON A. PENN, representative of the 8th District, no stranger to The Big Story.
Yes.
And in a time like this, yes, we need to be talking.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Always a pleasure to be here with you and the good people at JTV, just to talk to the people of the Virgin Islands in terms of how we're going to get through this very difficult time that is COVID-19. Like I say, I look forward to engaging with you and the people of the territory. Like I said, I could be a co-host, Kathy. I mean, I've been here so often recently, but it's a good thing. It's always good when we could share and have a conversation with you and the people of the territory.
Yes, well, you did what I did not even do. I just pulled the comb quickly through my hair and just run and come and do the thing. Yeah. But you're looking all sharp. I have to check out the barber today and make sure that you're ready with a bright smile. But we smile in a time when we are going through really, really tough times.
Yes,
I wish sometimes that I can pour my heart out to persons who are much more challenged than I am, because none of us is free of challenges, to just embrace you and say, it will work out. Let's, try not to get anxious, try not to let anger and outrage take over our hearts, but try to be as calm as possible. But it's impossible to tell someone when they are facing a challenge way more than you are to be that calm. And when in saying that, I want to lead into that discourse as to the topical issues right now in the territory. It's no point in beating around the bush and talking other things at the moment. There are some serious issues that persons are expressing concerns for and against. Yes. Let's first tackle that issue of persons returning to the territory to their jobs. Those who have active work permit or is exempt, their job is there, their employers are just there waiting for them to return, and from what we are told, that they are being denied re-entry.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a very topical issue. It's something that I have some concerns about, and I expressed that in a statement that I made recently to the media concerning the approach that was taken, the policy position that was taken, that seemed very knee-jerk, very unplanned kind of a policy approach. And it didn't take into consideration a lot of the other factors, persons who have been gainfully employed, persons who are married to Virgin Islanders, and I have gotten, since my statement, several messages from persons who are married to Virgin Islanders who are away. Their job is waiting for them to come back. They're the breadwinners of the household, and those individuals cannot return to the territory to provide for their family, to meet their obligations to the territory. And I believe that that is something that we need to really look at in a more holistic approach. And it speaks to me and what I've been seeing lately with this government. And the approach to COVID-19 is it's very unplanned. There seems to be no plan. There seems to be no cohesion with the policy decision that they're making. And it's created more hardship, not just for the individuals, but for the businesses. Because these individuals are employees to businesses that for the most part are owned by Virgin Islanders. Virgin Islanders in this territory represent less than a third of the population. 2/3 of the population is imported labor. That labor is skilled labor for the most part. Some of it is unskilled labor. But is labor that is needed to run what we call our billion-dollar economy. Prior to Hurricanes Irma and Maria, the BVI had a billion-dollar economy and climbing. It had a hit after Hurricanes Irma and Maria, but it was good fiscal policies that helped that economy grow back to a billion-dollar economy. We now see, before the pandemic, we are at that point. We are at a point where our economy was strong, our economy was moving forward because of the policy decisions previously. And we now are at the point where if we don't work collectively, we don't work in a cohesive manner with the business community and the policymakers and the working population to ensure that the policies help to help stimulate the economy, help to maintain the level of economy that we have currently, and look at our policy direction that grows the economic development in the territory long term. We're going to run into some serious challenges, Kathy.
Honorable Penn, you speak a lot about the policy makers. I know for a fact in your position you are a legislator within the House of Assembly. So to some extent, what you have to say lends to the making of some policies in some ways. Given the scenario that you just spoke of the breadwinners of a family that may be out of the territory, denied re-entry at this time, these are issues I am wondering if by some chance you were having that opportunity to chat with the Premier, chat with the minister responsible to discuss and share one-on-one, not necessarily having to go in the House of Assembly to battle it out, but to meet person to person and relate the concerns that you are having. Is this happening at any level?
I must say first, Katia, I think we need to educate the public in terms of how the process works, specifically to the legislative process and the policy-making process. The Cabinet of the Virgin Islands, which is made of the Premier and his four other ministers, and the Governor, who is the chairman but does not have a voting cabinet, are the ones who sets the policy direction of the country. They're the ones who decide which legislations will come to the House of Assembly. They're the ones, because of virtue of a majority, would pretty much ensure that whatever legislations or policies come to the House of Assembly are enacted. They're the ones who drive the agenda. And it's quite sad, Kathy, because issues of this nature, specifically to the pandemic, I think we should use all our minds, bring all the minds around the table. Kathy, I learned about this issue, this policy decision, on a Sunday during Festival Week. I learned that it was done Friday, Sunday night during Festival Week. There was no conversation with myself or any other elected member from the opposition on the policy direction. And the Premier has no responsibility to speak to me or anybody else. But we're going through a difficult situation where we believe that all minds need to be involved in a discussion, and decisions like this should never be made in a vacuum, never be made in terms of an individualistic type of approach in terms of decision making. It has to be made based on sound data, sound information. So when you make a broad policy decision like this, it has far-reaching implications. And we have to make sure that we're mindful of those implications, and the hurt is going to cost not just for the persons directly, but the economy indirectly, their families. Like I said, there are persons who are married to these individuals. There are businesses that are depending on these skilled individuals to come back and give back to their businesses. Even the government, Kathy, I learned recently that 2 nurses that work for the Health Services Authority was sent back from the territory, who were trying to return to make their contribution to the health services in this territory. We're going through a pandemic. We need nurses.
No. Let me pause you here for a moment. Nurses from the BVI Health Services Authority may be attached to the hospital or to the health centers around the territory were denied re-entry recently, who have active.
Yes, and I was reliably informed that this happened, Kathy, and this happened on August Tuesday. They were turned back. 2 persons were taken off the plane so that these 2 nurses could be repatriated to, one was from St. Vincent and one is from Grenada. We just brought in 22 nurses and doctors into the territory from Cuba, whom we say that we need to be able to help with this fight of this pandemic. Nurses are the frontline persons when it comes to the pandemic. They're the ones who do the testing. They're the ones who go out and treat the patients when they're sick. You need persons of that skill set. While we want as much as possible to ensure that our Virgin Islanders are gainfully employed in key areas, if we don't have the skill sets, we don't have the professionals in those areas, we have to import those professionals. And if these professionals, where I understand, have been working for the Health Services Authority for 16 years. 16 years of service, been here for Irma and Maria, gave their service during that period. That is not right. And it shows that it's a disconnect with the policymakers and the reality on the ground. We have to ensure that when we make policies, it doesn't create more hardship than good. I sympathize with the Premier, though, in this government, because it's a difficult time with COVID-19. There's no silver bullet for this. But we have to think these things through carefully and properly. That's why, as an opposition, as you know, Kathy, in early May, mid-May, we came up with a set of ideas that we thought were useful, that we could lend to the conversation, lend to the discussion in terms of how we're going to move forward with COVID-19 and after and during COVID-19, because the reality is, Kathy, we have to learn to coexist with COVID-19. And like the former President Bush said in one election, is the economy stupid? It's all about the economy. So we have to figure out how can we maintain the current economic activity that we have, how can we strengthen the current economic areas, how can we move forward and transition into reopening in a safe, responsible, and reliable way. But we have to have a plan, Kathy. We cannot continue to just throw things on the wall and hope that something sticks. We have limited resources. We cannot continue to squander those limited resources without a clear, coherent plan moving forward.
Okay. Forgive me if I'm sounding as though I'm harping on this particular scenario, but I from as much as I possibly can, would love to get some clarity. And I know these are the questions that our audience might be having as well, and that's my role here, to as far as possible to stretch my imagination to understand, to get some clarity. I'm going back to the two nurses who were turned back. From your explanation, they arrived at the Terrence B. Lettsome International Airport. Isn't the process for persons returning one in which you have to first apply to the Ministry of Health, the BVI Health Services Authority, who gives the approval for whether or not you can come? You cannot get aboard a flight from no given country to come here without that approval. That's your understanding?
That is my understanding as well, Kathy. And my understanding was that one of the individuals for sure had clearance. I wasn't able to ascertain whether the other individual had clearance to get to the territory. But these are your frontline people. These are persons that you have employed for 16 years in the front line to fight in whatever ailments. Nurses. That's their job. That's their job. And if you're going to bring in 22 persons from overseas that you have to finance, you have to pay for, you have to house, you have to do all the things necessary to keep them maintained, which is good. And I have in no way I'm against the nurses and doctors coming to help us during this period. Strengthen the health professionals here on the ground. But we have to respect and have a level of appreciation for the persons who have been here on the ground with us as well, and make sure that they are given the same level of dignity as well. To come here to the BVI and be put back on a plane after you've been working for this country for 16 years, that can't be the right approach. We could have worked up whatever details that needed to work up with those individuals, especially if they were gainfully employed by us at the Health Services Authority. So I urge the Premier and the Minister of Health to look into the situation and really get a grasp of what happened and ensure that we have the proper coverage to keep our people safe during this period, and we treat people with a little dignity and a little respect. As we know, we all are going through a very difficult time at this moment.
Okay, if I'm to delve further into this, we may probably take up the entire little time that we have. But let's move on to other areas. I guess you would have heard the Premier in his most recent update to the economy as to where we're going next, his next economic plan. Your thoughts on what you heard from the Premier?
I heard the same regurgitation of the same set of ideas that have already been on the table. The CDB $65 million loan, as you know, Kathy, which was done under the last NDP administration to help with the showing up of the infrastructure after Hurricanes Irma and Maria. It's the same monies that is being spent to execute those projects under that CDB loan project. So there's no new project, so to speak, that the Premier has outlined to say that he has this grand economic strategy. I'm really discouraged. I'm really concerned that we lack an economic strategy for moving forward as a country. In the plan that we put forward to the Premier and his government, we talked about construction. We talked about getting some of those same projects moving. the CDB, the Social Security housing program. We talked about a lot of those initiatives and getting the private sector jump-started to ensure that they drive economic growth. But we also talked about the fact that we have over 60% of our economy out of work, which is a tourism sector. These are not specifically skilled individuals in construction in those areas. So we have to find a way to get those persons re-engaged in some way in working within the territory. And these are not just persons from overseas. These are all Virgin Islanders or belongers that live in the territory or residents that work in this industry. So we have to find a way to get those persons working. And one of the things that we proposed, it was a work for pay program, where you go about the process of getting the hurricane shelters up and running prior to Hurricanes Irma and Maria, prior to the hurricane season, get the shelters up and running, get the guts and roadways cleared and cleaned so that we don't have any flooding and any damage to property adjacent to those areas. The roads are dilapidated, Kathy. These are areas where you need labor to get those things going. The issues of schools, while they're closed at this time, schools need to be retrofitted for the new normal as it is, as it relates to COVID-19. When students are going to re-engage school and learning environment, you need to have a different shift in terms of how we prepare our schools to receive students. And while we were shut down, it was a perfect opportunity to get the schools up and running in a way that could accept students for what is now the new normal in terms of the COVID-19 era. And we haven't seen that. The Premier's economic plan didn't speak to anything of that. Continue to speak to the whole jargon of the Eastern Sewage Project and how the money left and it came back. But the reality is that the money went to the ports, Kathy, and the bulk of the money was coming back as a loan. Before Hurricanes Irma and Maria, almost $3 million was already returned. Now the Premier is returning another additional $3 million from the ports, which was the intention all along. So the money to return so that project could move forward.
But you would agree with me that that particular project is one that we really need to get out of the way. I'm
saying that yes, we need to do it, but we need to stop continue playing politics with that project. That's my concern. This administration continues to play politics with the Eastern Long Sewage Project just to score cheap political points. Let's get the money in place. Let's get the work going. Let's get the engineers and all the people that needs to be in place so that we could get that fixed once and for all for the people of my community. We've suffered for a long time. It's something that we need to do. And that is a project that I support. And I fought under the CDB loan program to ensure that monies were allocated under that loan to get that project going. And there's monies under the CDB loan program to do the main line from Paramtown all the way to the police station in Greenland. So there's monies already allocated to get that project going. We just need to get on with it and stop playing politics with it. But overall, we need a more cohesive and comprehensive strategy. And part of that strategy has to be, how are we going to reopen this territory safely? How are we going to ensure that we keep our people safe, our tourists coming to the shore safe? And how are we going to get the economy moving again, the engine of the economy moving again? And we've had 6 months since we've shut down in March. And we've yet to see a clear, cohesive, connected plan. It's about 6 months.
Wow.
It's about 6 months, Kathy.
6 months gone and half of a year already.
We've lost 6 months.
I didn't even realize that.
And we've yet to see a plan coming out from this government. How are we going to reopen the territory? We have to learn to coexist with COVID-19. No one is saying rush to open up your country. You can't, every time you see something go wrong in a country, you say, yes, you see why? Yes, that's why we didn't open. That can't be a strategy. Your strategy has to be something that is tangible, that person could see, a living document, that person could say, okay, this is the approach that the government is taking. This is what businesses need to do to keep their customers safe and their workers safe, so that businesses have an opportunity to plan their reopening. They have an opportunity to allocate resources for their reopening. So if they need to put in additional infrastructure in place, they know that they need monies to put these infrastructures in place. But you can't plan for this if you don't know what the government's plan is. And the government has yet to articulate what their plan is. The fact that they've said that they're going to indefinitely restrict work permit holders from returning says that there's no planning site for reopening the territory. It says that businesses who have persons who are critical to their organization are not going to be in the territory to help to move that business forward. And even if they decide, okay, tomorrow let's do that, if those persons have to come back, they still have to quarantine for 2 weeks. A business still have to wait for 2 weeks based on the existing protocol. to get those employees to be able to get their business up and running. That's not good economic planning. That is not good planning in general.
So you were saying that they're very slothful in coming up with a proper plan.
Yes.
Is it your opinion that they are fearful of tackling certain issues?
I don't want to draw any conclusion on what it is, Kathy, but all I know, it doesn't exist. And all I know that the people of this territory and the business community needs to know. There needs some level of certainty what the government's plan is for moving forward. Because if we don't move now, we don't act now, we're going to lose a lot of our businesses. Our charter, one in particular, the charter companies, Kathy. St. Thomas for years have been positioning themselves to reclaim the charter businesses in this territory. They've been positioning themselves through legislation, through different statutes, and their whole marketing strategy to get the charter companies to relocate back to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And they've been successful in a lot of areas. Some of the companies are already started to move to the U.S. Virgin Islands to set up shop.
But the argument there is that I think what I'm hearing from the government is that we want to make sure that our people's health is not compromised in any major way.
Yes.
We've been very good so far in containing the numbers, to keeping it down to a very low figure. If we are to not say rush, but to move a little faster. Like yesterday, I had Honorable Whitley on the show, and I used the analogy. He laughed at it, the snail versus a tortoise pace, because we're moving slow. Is that they don't want to rush into anything much faster than they are currently doing, because there is no knowing what the end all be all of this COVID pandemic has in its playbook. And as such, because I do not know what is the end role, where this is going, it's kind of difficult for me to come up with a plan.
Kathy,
I'm just trying to be on both sides here to feel how you are feeling and try to get a feel of what might be the feeling of the government.
Kathy, an inaction is an action, and it has implication, it has repercussions. We have to figure out a way forward, Kathy. We cannot just sit back and wait and take the wait-and-see approach. The reality is that 60% of our economy is dormant, is non-existent. How are we going to replace that 60%? We've taken $40 million out of the Social Security. We cannot continue to go back to Social Security to fulfill the obligations on the ground. We have to find a way to create jobs for our people. We have to balance the health risk. And no one is saying that you should make the people, create an unsafe situation for the people in the Virgin Islands. They're saying, let's come up with a plan. Let's think it through. Let's see what are the best protocols for keeping our people safe. Let's test them while things are slow right now. We could use one subset of the tourism economy to test these protocols, something that's manageable. And we could see how well these protocols work.
Like we have
to do something though, Kathy. We cannot just sit here and wait and see, and then every time somebody does, who is trying to help their country, their people and the economy, we point fingers at them and say, look, you see what they did? You see what's happening to them? That cannot be our approach. We have to lead from the front. We can't continue to lead from behind. And no one is saying that we're putting our people out there in danger. No, I would not be irresponsible to say and to force the government to put our people at risk. Let's come up with a sound strategy to keep our people safe, a sound strategy to reopen our economy, a sound strategy that our business community can buy into, that they can support, that they could have the wherewithal to put the right things in place, the right people in place to keep both our people on the ground safe, the people that are coming to the BVI to vacation or whatever, and do the things that to get our economy going again. Kathy, the last time I asked in the House of Assembly about our current balances on account, we had about 120 something to $130 million in our reserve fund and in our consolidated fund. Kathy, we spend about $23 to $25 million a month just to keep government running. If we continue on this pace and we don't do anything and we just take the wait and see approach, we'll be bankrupt. as a country. And we'll be so far behind, it'll be difficult for businesses to catch themselves moving forward. The stimulus plan that the Premier has put out in terms of the $62 million plan, Cathy, less than a third of that money has gotten to the people. I know for a fact the businesses who have applied have yet to get any support. There are persons at the last update from the ministers, less than 20% of persons from Social Security has gotten help. I don't know, that might be more by this time,
Yes,
Cathy.
yeah.
But the point is that the assistance is slow to get into the people. Even the assistance that the Premier promised us as district representative, we only got access to that assistance Friday evening of last week, since May 28th. The first time we've gotten access to that assistance was Friday evening of last week. So in the meantime, instead of dealing and ensuring that that money gets to the people, we passed marijuana legislation. We passed gambling legislation. We have to make the people and the economy the priority moving forward. And we have to figure out how to balance the health situation with the economic situation, and how we're going to keep our people safe, how we're going to keep our residents safe, our tourists safe, and how we're going to coexist with COVID-19 moving forward. Because at the end of the day, Cathy, COVID-19 isn't going anywhere. We have to put strong, safe protocols in place to manage COVID-19 and ensure it doesn't create additional hardships to our people and to our businesses in the territory. Because at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to get our economy going again. Okay.
So while the big boys and the big girls are up there with the legislative aspects of things and keeping an eye on things that we might not have a clue how it operates and what is necessary to be done, there are those of us who are on the grassroots level and are exhibiting a lot of tension because of what is happening from the higher bracket. Let's talk about the most common one right now, where we have the issue of the government saying, what I'm doing right now to keep persons who are on permit and exempt out is to ensure that my people, my bona fide citizens, BVI lander, gets a job because they are out of a job. Now, this is causing so much tension. I feel it. I feel the tension through the narratives people are putting out there, both sides, for and against this issue. In your humble opinion, Honorable PENN, what is the best way you think we should be able to go around this and to, as far as possible, make the majority comfortable?
Scotty, is a difficult subject, it's a difficult topic, because the reality is that we have to find a way, we have to find the right balance. And I am not one who would Scotty, I have make no apologies for my heritage in this territory. I'm a Virgin Islands, a bona fide Virgin Islander, and I believe that opportunities in the Virgin Islands should be for Virgin Islands as much as possible. And we should always push to make sure that Virgin Islands get whatever opportunities are available to them. But we have to understand the economy that we have in the Virgin Islands. We have $1 billion economy, and we have imported 2/3 of the labor force necessary to run a $1 billion economy. And removing 2/3 of that labor force is going to create a collapse in that economy. So we have to make sure that when we make these decisions, they're based on some data. And even if we remove the 2/3 of all the labor that we imported, there's no way that all those posts could fill by Virgin Islands. By virtue of numbers, we cannot fill all those posts. So there has to be a balance that the government has to take when it comes to these labor issues. Yes, where Virgin Islands are trained and they're skilled and have the ability to get these jobs, they should have these jobs bar none, without question. They should be employed in those areas. But when persons you have brought in skilled labor to do certain skills, you just can't, on a drop of a dime, say leave. You can't. That cannot be your approach. So you have to figure out, on a case-by-case basis, I've recommended. There are persons who are here, who are floating around, Cathy, and who are not working, who are not gainfully employed, and we have to figure out how to deal with those things. And immigration know who these individuals are. They know who are the employers who are bringing in persons who they don't have employment for. Deal with those issues. Address those issues, but not persons who are here on work permit or who are on exemption and married to Virgin Islanders, and you're telling them that they cannot return to the country. You're telling them that they cannot return to the country and provide for their family. They cannot return to the country and maintain their obligations when they have a job. Not that they don't have a job. They have a job. maintain the obligations in the territory, that cannot be your approach. And that's not an approach that I think we should take. We have to look at these situations on a case-by-case basis. We must at all times ensure that the opportunities that are there and Virgin Islands are prepared and ready to take those opportunities. You should take those opportunities, but you can't mix the two. It's no one-size-fits-all approach. So you have to take, like I said, a case-by-case approach to this issue, figure out how we could get our persons placed as much as we can. But how can you place them if you've shut down 60% of the economy? You have not brought forward a plan for how you're going to reopen 60% of the economy, which represents most of the jobs in the territory, which is tourism. So how are you going to create jobs? You have not brought forward an economic strategy that says, this is how we intend to create jobs. The construction job projects that they talked about are not going to create jobs in the sense that we are expecting. These companies that get these projects already have their workforce. And it's between 5 or 10 companies that are going to get these jobs. So you have to figure out, how can I expand the opportunities for employment in the territory? And a work for pay program is a good program, is a good way to do that.
Okay.
You know.
So the other quick talk we'll close off after this one, because we've been exhausting some time here, but it's a worthwhile discourse. Talk to the issue. Expats come and they accept a minimum wage. BVI belonger citizen would go to that same job but demand a higher wage. The employer says, for my business to attain certain level in terms of its income and all of that, I'm going to take the one who is going to accept the minimum wage. The government is saying, you need to take this set. But my businessman is saying, I cannot afford to pay more. So when that person gets on the job, they do not perform as expected, or they, in their estimation, I'm getting $6, I'm going to work $6. But the expat comes and the expat says, I'm getting $6, I can still give my all. So therein lie a two-side scenario. How do we deal with these issues?
I mean, those are hypothetical things, Kathy, and I know as a young person growing up in the Virgin Islands, I had to start out at the bottom too. When I left high school, I started out working at the post office. I was a mail clerk. I used to go and get the mail and sort the mail and put the mail up. I got an opportunity, and I made the minimum dollar at that time as well. I got an opportunity to do it. So I know there's these anomalies that we continue to bring, but they're not the norm. They're Virgin Islanders who work their way up the system and make their contribution to the development, and they work till they get to where they want to go in the economy. And we have to give them the opportunity wherever those opportunities lie. And we also have to respect the persons who have come to the territory and have contributed and continue to contribute to the development and the growth of our economy. And they've worked hard, a lot of them. And to just tell them leave like a snap of a finger, without at least giving them opportunity to settle their affairs, get things under control, it's not the right approach. We have to create social cohesion in the BVI. The BVI is mixed with different cultures, different nationalities, working together in a common goal. We saw that after Hurricanes Irma and Maria. We all didn't see, you're from St. Vincent, or you're from Antigua, or I'm from Tortola. We saw persons working in concert to get the Virgin Islands back on its feet. And we're going to need that same level of social cohesion. We're going to need that same level of togetherness for us moving forward as a territory and as a people. I, Kathy, represent, I like to boast about it because it is who I am. 9 generations of Virgin Islanders who came here over 300 years ago to settle in, who was brought here, not came here, was brought to this territory over 300 years ago. My stepfather is from Antigua. He loves the Virgin Islands just as I love the Virgin Islands. My sisters and brothers are descendants of our stepfather from Antigua. So we have, for years as a territory, we have worked collectively with our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean and other countries. We have to figure out a way. This is a difficult time for all of us. It's a difficult time for the belong finding opportunities. We have to make sure that the opportunities are there for them as well. But we cannot just discard and disregard our brothers and sisters who've been here with us during this thick and thin, especially the ones who continue to contribute, the ones who are gainfully employed, the ones who are our husbands, our wives, our neighbors, and persons who we know that continue to do their part. There are aspects of the economy and persons within the economy who are not being productive, and some of them might well want to leave because of the circumstance on the ground. Give them opportunity to leave. But this situation has to be, Kathy, we have to look at it as a case-by-case scenario. We cannot take a blanket approach. It's going to have far-reaching implications for the social cohesion in this country, far-reaching implications for the economic viability of this country. These persons have loans, they have responsibilities. Most of the apartments and businesses are owned by Virgin Islanders. That in itself has far-reaching economic implications. And we have to really be more thoughtful, have a more strategic approach when we're doing and making policy decisions. But all in all, we have to find a way to continue to build social cohesion in this country. And the bottom line is that we need immigration reform. Okay. Immigration reform has to happen. And it has to be happen in concert, in a collective approach in terms of how we're going to reform immigration in the territory moving forward.
Okay, man, Jahphix, closing.
No
See my facial expression, man, Jahphix, closing.
And I love manjack ice cream.
Why are you?
I go just like the first place I go straight to manjack. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and we have to find a way. When we're making policy decisions, Kathy, we have to make sure that the businesses are involved in those discussions. You can't make policy decisions for a business or a sector without the involvement of the persons in that sector. Can't vote well for the kind of cohesion that we need moving forward.
Okay. The doors are always open to you, Honorable PENN.
Always a pleasure.
Looking forward to seeing you back here as soon as possible, so we can continue for the dialogue on these topical issues. And thank you so much for being as candid as you always are.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for having me, and that's all I can be, who I am. And I want to again thank the people of the Virgin Islands and the people of the 8th District for listening and always for supporting me during this process, and supporting all of us during this process, because it's a difficult time for all of us with COVID-19. Support the government as well as some of the things that they're doing. I think it's difficult, but we have to keep them in check to make sure that we all on the same page and we're working in the best interest of the people and the economy of this territory.
Thank you for joining us here on this edition of The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.